Okay, I think we are going to get started. Welcome again. My name is Lisa Simmons. I am the program manager for the communities team here at Mass Cultural Council. I am joined by my colleagues Jay Wong, Greg Torales, and Cheyenne Postel-Cohn, and we are really excited today and this afternoon to talk to you about managing funds and the LCC account form. You can, on the bottom of your screen, put on your closed captions if you need it. This program, this webinar will be recorded and available on the YouTube site for Mass Cultural Council, hopefully by the end of the week. And with that will also be the PowerPoint presentation that have a number of links in them that I think would be really helpful to you. But today we're really talking about the LCC account form and talking about managing funds with the LCC and the municipality. And this webinar, as always, we find really helpful because sometimes the funding and the money can be a little confusing in terms of the form. So we just really wanted to make sure that we were providing an opportunity for us to all talk about it. So without further ado, we are going to go over the agenda, which we're going to go over the timeline and just briefly the guidelines. We did have a guidelines webinar a couple of weeks ago, and yesterday we just had the applicant webinar. So both of those will be available on our YouTube channel. So definitely as part of the resources for FY26, we won't go over in depth the guidelines today, just a link that that will bring you there. And then the timeline of what needs to go on between now and January 16th when the annual report for the LCCs are due. I also wanted to share with you some useful documents, which is a grant tracking spreadsheet, ledger template, and municipal meeting prep sheet for the LCCs who are here and are going to be working with their municipalities, as well as just a few definitions, the account form itself, and then the two things that we need to look at for this year and what you're going to need to know when you go into your grant meetings at the end of October. We'll do a little run through of that application, of that form, and then provide you with some resources. So again, if you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A, and my colleagues will help during the process of the webinar be able to answer some of those, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end for any other questions that you might have. So let's get started. So to go over the FY26 program guidelines and timeline, just wanted to make you aware that the guidelines are posted, and they are at this site, at this link site on our website. August 28th, the LCCs were to have posted their council priorities and council pages in our GMS system, and that's amazing because 87% of the LCCs did do that. If you have not posted your priorities or your guidelines, you are not able to do so for this year, but you still have the Mass Cultural Council guidelines to fall back on when you're doing your grant meetings. So for August and September, LCCs are publicizing the grant program locally, and we are as well doing it statewide. September 2nd, the grant cycle opened. So if you go to your portal, you're in Smart Simple in our GMS system, you may already see applications that are coming in to your particular city or town. September 2nd to the 30th. Now, this is where councils are going to be meeting in person or virtually with their municipal fiscal officers to discuss the financials of the last year and the current year. So that's what we obviously are going to be speaking about today. October 9th is the deadline for LCCs to complete the financial information in our GMS system. So we bumped that up a week because the 16th is the closing date for all applications at 11:59 p.m. And we want to make sure that the LCCs have the information that you need in order to make decisions if you should create a grant meeting the 17th or 18th of October, which you can do because you will have your panel books and the information you need. October 17th, they're created, they'll be sent out, and they'll be available to you in the GMS system. And then October to December is really when LCCs should be holding their voting meetings and completing the forms in the GMS system. In order to meet the January 16th deadline for your annual reports, and this is for LCCs, you really should be holding your voting meetings before the end of December because you need to wait that 15-day period for reconsideration requests. So just make sure you're taking that into consideration when you are planning when your voting meeting is going to be. Ideally, we would love for you to hold them before the end of December. January 16th is the date that your annual report is due to Mass Cultural Council. So in addition to that, I just want to also lift up that we are going to be sending contracts to the municipalities. Those contracts are for your allocations that were approved by the council, our council, in August. It is a level funding, so the same as last year. But in order to receive the funds, we do need the contracts to be returned. So you will, in the municipal side, you will be receiving some information from us to verify sort of like EFT information, and that needs to be turned around pretty quickly so we can make sure that we have your contracts in-house so that by the time you finish your grant meeting and you submit your annual report, we'll be able to send that money over to you. So I wanted to go over some useful documents for LCCs who are meeting with their municipal officers, and these can all be found on our website. It's a grant tracking spreadsheet that you should always be using anyway, sort of like your own internal form that helps you know where your grants stand and where your grantees are in terms of whether it's a reimbursement or whether you're a direct grant council. And that was the other thing. If you are a reimbursement or a direct grant council, you will have had to make that decision by September 2nd. Another useful document is this ledger template, and it records all transactions and expenditures, and you can find this also online. Just really helpful so that when you are meeting with the municipal fiscal officer, that you can understand that you're on the same page. Again, on our website. And then the municipal meeting prep sheet, which is basically mirrors the account form that we're going to go over today for the LCC, and where you can put in your numbers. It just helps to speed things along as you're having the conversation with your municipal officers. Now, I know a number of you have already filled out the form on the municipal side and are already set up meetings with your LCC, which is awesome, which is great. So we're really excited that everyone's sort of getting a jump on this. So we're hoping that the October 9th date will be easy to meet. So just to go over briefly the definitions. So fiscal year, as you know, 1 year period of time, it matches the state. So our fiscal year begins on July 1st and ends on July 30th and June 30th. As you know, allocations, the state funds are the allocations you're receiving from the Mass Cultural Council. We will go over these boxes in the account form, but the state funds are the ones that you're receiving from us. Locally raised funds are any funds that are not received through the Mass Cultural Council's allocation. So municipal revenue, interest income, donations, fundraising, that's where you're going to put those funds. And encumbered funds are the funds that have been promised to a grantee but have yet to be spent. And this comes into play during the second tab where it's calculate amount available for granting, so that you know how much money you're still holding on to for those grantees who have yet to send in their either direct grant paperwork or their reimbursement paperwork. So let's go over this account form. So these account forms were sent to the municipal fiscal officers about 2.5 weeks ago. So your municipal fiscal officers should have this account form, and if not, please check. Sometimes the form has gone to someone who held that position last year but doesn't hold that position this year. So there's been a number of adjustments of sending out new forms, so please let us know. The council member will then meet with the fiscal officer and make sure, as we talked about, that the accounting matches. You should work together to resolve any discrepancies. And then to make sure that the money that has gone out has gone to the right person, that there isn't any extra money. This is really important because when you come to the point where you have the amount that's available for granting, you want to make sure that that amount is correct because you don't want to either over grant or under grant when you're going through your grant program. So we'll break this down a little bit more, but this is basically what the form is looking like. So let's go through boxes 1 through 4, which covers all the revenue that's in the LCC account. Now, the account form, tab 1 on this sheet, basically is about fiscal year 25. Okay, so this is basically a snapshot of what is in your account or what went in and out of your account in fiscal year 25. So when you get the account form, you're going to fill in the account balance, which was the beginning of the fiscal year, which was July 2024. You're going to put in the state revenue that you received in fiscal year 25. That goes in this box. Any municipal revenue, like I said before, whether the municipality, matches your LCC allocation, which is always wonderful and incredibly appreciative, or interest income, which is in box 3B, and then other revenue. So this other revenue is different from your municipal revenue. Okay, this is if you've done you've locally raised funds from any non-state or non-municipal source. So fundraising, some of you do fundraising programs. So that's where you would put that information in there. Now, one of the things about the Form 1-2 is that it's broken up into 2 ways. So box 4, once you add up all those things, it'll give you total revenue. And then we need to move to expenditures. So in this form, you'll see where it says click to enter expenditures. And we'll go through this, but it'll say click to, which will take you to the 4th tab, where you'll enter in all of the grantee payments that you have already made. So in FY25, if you have made, if you had $6,000 to spend, all of the money that you have spent and sent out to grantees will be captured in this form. And it is a self-calculating number. So it'll take you out of this form, bring you to another sheet where you're going to put in all that information. It's going to tally it all up for you, and it's going to put it in box 5 for you. And basically, this is what the expenditure detail is going to look like. If you can see that, payee, payment date, payment amount, and then the total expenditures is going to be a self-calculating field. So the lower part of the account form, which includes box 5, will include, like I just said, that will come over from the other tab. Box 6 tallies all of that revenue for you. Okay, so it provides you with an account balance at the end of the fiscal year. So it will come from box A in section 2. So what ends up happening is that all of that's going to be calculated, and some of that money is actually local money because it's all the revenue you've taken in. So this at times can be confusing. You need to extract the local revenue that you have that's part of that account end balance and make sure you put it in box 7. And why that's important is because if you want to hold back any of that local money and not use it as part of the grant cycle for this year, this number here in box 7, let me just see if I can highlight that, right here in box 7 cannot be blank or it won't allow you to do that. So just be sure in this account balance ending fiscal year 6/30/25, if there is any local money in there, that you pull out that local money and you put it into box 7. Box 8 is the MCC entry code. Now that entry code is only, the only person that has that entry code right now is the municipality. So when you get your form back from the municipality, this is for the LCCs, you need to make sure that this entry code is on here and that you're going to need this when you put it into our GMS system. So for the forms that went to the municipal fiscal officers, this entry code is pre-populated. So when you get the form, you should already have this, but this is what you're going to need in order to enter that into the code. Okay. Let's see what else. And then you're going to have to certify, the municipal fiscal officer in box 9 just certifies that this is correct. Okay. And then we move on to this. So this is what we just said. The box 7 tracks unspent local funds. So you just want to make sure that we're putting that in there. Then we're going to move to the second tab. So it used to be that the LCC would meet with the municipal fiscal officer and just do tab 1, but we realized that tab 2, the calculate amount available for granting, is equally as important as a snapshot of the prior fiscal year. So this tab focuses on fiscal year 26. So this is all of the information about how much money you still have in your account and how much money has left the account since July 1. So you'll see here, box A, that account balance is going to come over from tab 1. It automatically pre-populates, so you don't have to worry about that. What is really important too is that in this today's date section right here where it says today's date, this is the date that the form was completed. So it could be September 15th. It could be October 1st. Whatever date that you're completing this sheet, this is for the municipal fiscal officer, whatever date you're completing this sheet and giving it to the LCC, that's the date that goes on here. It's not the July 1st date. It's the date that you are completing this form. Box A, as I said, is the balance that's going to come over from tab 1, from the LCC account form. Box B is asking, as I said, how much money has left the account? How much have you paid out since July 1 of this year? And this is important because you have just granted out in January or February of 2025, right? Some of that money is still, you're still spending that money. You're still sending that money out. It doesn't end on June 30th. So we need to know how much money from July 1 to the time that to the date that you're doing this form, how much money has left that account. It could be, it could be any number. And then the other piece of it is box C, which is asking you how much money is still left in the account. And this is really important, as I said before, because we want to make sure that we have this number correct. If you have grantees that have not been paid, if you have grantees have not submitted reimbursements, if you have grantees have not filled out their direct payment form, you want to make sure that you're holding that money in the account so that it doesn't get spent or accounted for when you're doing your amount for, calculating your amount available for granting. And box D is asking you if you've received any local money in this current fiscal year. So I know that there are some municipalities that are making decisions. I know that there's fundraisers that are happening right now, between now and maybe October 15th or October 30th or something. And you want to hold on to this form to just see how much more money is going to come in to fill in this box, and that's fine. If you cannot complete this form by October 9th because you have those variables that are happening, please let your program officer know so that they can make sure that you're on track for completing this form. So going back to now we're moving to the bottom half of this calculate amount for granting, also tab 2. So one of the things this is where I was talking about box F. You cannot hold back any money in box F if you did not add it to the first tab in the LCC account form. So this is where you would put this. So let's say you've raised like $750 and it's local money, and you want to make sure that that is not going to be part of the grant cycle. You have to put it in box F, because that basically is going to pull from your available remaining balance. Okay. If you want all of that money and you raised all of that money because you wanted it to be part of the grant cycle, then you can just leave that blank. And then it will automatically calculate the amount of money that's going into to the amount that you're going to be granting this year. Box G allows you to take 5% of your current allocation for administrative funds, for administrative expenses. So look at what your allocation is this year, do 5% of that, and that goes here into box G. Now, you don't have to take administrative funds. Some LCCs choose not to do this, but if you are, this is where that goes. And the FY26 allocation, and this is sometimes missed because it's not filled in, the FY26 allocation goes into this block. Now, the LCCs received the fiscal year allocation somewhere on or after August 19th. It came through our GMS system. So if you don't know what that number is, please reach out to your program officer. But just so you do know, it is the same, as I said before, as last year. So we were level funded. All of that will self-calculate to give you the amount that is available for granting. So one of the things that is not in this tab that may influence the amount that you have available for granting is your ability to do a council program. So council programs, that information is going to be put into the next block after fiscal documents in the grants decision section. But if you are planning on doing a council program, you can take up to 20% of your current allocation for your council program. Just remember that as your amount for available granting to grantees will become lower if you choose to do that. You do not have to do a council program. It's always a great, it's always a great thing to do a council program. But if you have any questions about that, please reach out to your program officer. So I wanted to do a run through just quickly of the form. I think it's helpful to sort of see it in real time. So basically, this is what the form looks like that went to the fiscal officers, as we've seen in the PowerPoint presentation. But I just want to make sure that you know how it will work and how the self-calculations will work. So let's say the balance in the beginning of the fiscal year, which was July 21st, 2024, was $546. And let's say your state revenue allocation was $5,900. And you can already see it starting to self-calculate. And let's say your municipal revenue, you didn't receive any municipal revenue. And then you are allowed to get interest income on your bank accounts. So let's say the interest income is $2.67, and you'll see it starting to calculate. And let's say you did not receive any other revenue. So basically right now I'm looking at your total revenues, which is 5,902.67. And it will tell you, if you click on this box, it should tell you what the formula is, but we've put the formulas down in the bottom so you know that it's calculating the right thing. So then we move to the expenditures. And remember, this is for fiscal year 25. So we move to the expenditures, and if this is where you're going to, when I said fill out the form for your expenditures. So if you click onto expenditures, it'll bring you to this page, which is tab 4 in this workbook. And I've already sort of pre-populated the people that here's your payee, here's your payment information. And let's say your payment amount to this person is $600. let's say in this person, it's 1,200. They're lucky. And let's say this one's 500. So you'll see on this section right here, it's self-calculating. So it's adding up all of these things in column C, bringing it over to column E, and then you're going to hit return to the account form. And it should populate, there it is, right there. It should populate what it is, that amount that your expenditure was. And it gives you the account balance at your end of your fiscal year. And if you have local revenue in here, which we didn't, we decided not to put it in here, this is where you would put it in. So you don't have any local revenue going into here. The MCC entry code, the fiscal officer has this, they'll sign off on it, and it'll be all set. So then we're going to move to the calculate amount for granting. So if we move over to this tab, we can see that the account balance came over at 4,148. Now we're going to look and see what's happened in fiscal year 26. We paid out $4,200. We're holding on to $800 that people have yet to collect. I'm just moving my screen up here. We don't have any additional revenue, unfortunately. And oh wait, see, so, oh now I'm in the negative. I don't want to be in the negative. So let's say that this is, you've paid out $2,200, that you have encumbered 800, and your self-calculating field is now telling you this is your remaining balance, $1,148. You're not keeping any money in local funds. You want to take $295 in administrative costs, and your FY26 allocation is going to be the same, $5,900. And there is what the amount that you have available for granting. If you were going to do a council program, it would be $1,180 based on 20% of your allocation, which would mean that you'd have 4,000 some odd dollars to grant out. So that's just keeping that in mind. So that is basically the account form. And in the account form too, for the municipalities, you have definitions in here, and then we already went over the expenditure detail. So that's basically how that form should work. And then for the LCCs, once you get this form from your municipal fiscal officer, you're going to take this information and you're going to go to the grants management system. You're going to log in as you would any other way. You're going to go to your portal page and you're going to see these three buckets. You've already done the new cycle report because that was due on the 28th and you did your priorities and guidelines. Now the next piece is this financial report section. You're going to click on that financial report section and it's going to take you to another screen that you'll click on, the FY26 financial report. You're going to open that up and then it's going to look like this. It's going to have both of these on here, and then you just start filling in the information that your municipal officer has given for you to go over the report. So best practices, receiving regular reports from the municipality is super helpful for you. I don't know for all of you what your relationship is with your fiscal officers and your municipalities, but it's great to create this rapport and this relationship so that you can have these types of conversations with them. Establishing a clear process with the municipality for tracking money and reimbursements is really a great way to make sure that you're constantly on top of what your finances are. Tracking all account expenditures and revenue is really a great way too, to make sure that when you come to this point in September and have to meet with the fiscal officer, the municipal fiscal officer, and you're coming together at the amount that you actually have in your account, it's great to have this documentation. And then, using those forms that I talked about in the beginning to sort of help you keep a ledger and track, the reimbursements that are coming in or the direct grants that are going out. The other thing too is with the direct grant program, it's best practice to have that turned around within 2 weeks. So you've approved a grantee, you're a direct grant counsel, you're going to send them out their W-9 form and their grant agreement form, and it's best practice for them to return that within the next 2 weeks, just so that you're ready to go when your funding has hit your account and the municipal fiscal officer can get that money out the door. So that's always a really great thing to use in order to track those approved grants. So in this PowerPoint, all of these resources are on our website. Your community program officer, we have a really robust document for resources for municipalities, a local cultural council guide for municipalities, and another one on managing local cultural council funds. We have a great rural municipality toolkit, as well as where priorities and guidelines are for municipalities, which is under the Find Your LCC section. And then, of course, the member toolkit. And then we have our YouTube page, which has all of the webinars that we have been putting out this year and will continue to provide these resources for you to make it a lot easier as you're reading these amazing applications that are coming in and making tough decisions on the cultural work that's going to be happening in your communities. So, for us and hopefully for you all, this is a really exciting time as you're getting the word out about these grants that are available and the kind of arts and culture that's going to be coming into your communities in the next year and a half. So I'd love to open it up for any questions that you might have. Thank you. Jay, Greg, or Cheyenne, do we have any questions?
Hi, Lisa. This is Greg. We have only 4 currently in the chat. Jay and
Great.
I are responding to those. So far, I haven't noticed any common themes. I don't know if my colleagues have. Each of these questions are somewhat specific, so there are some responses where we're asking you folks to just reach out to your program officer and/or Lisa Simmons directly because of the very specific situations that are involved in your questions. But no, currently I don't see any themes to voice.
Excellent. All right. Well, that concludes the webinar on the account form and the annual report. And as I said, please reach out to your program officers if you have any questions. Let us know if the form did not go to the right person in order to get it completed by the end of the month. And if you are going to have or be having or you anticipate any issues getting the form completed by the 9th of October. And we look forward to working with you, as always, every year for this incredible opportunity and program for your communities. So have a great afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us.